Hello and welcome to the DELMIA Food and Beverage track at the DELMIA Operations World Tour. My name is Thomas Muth and I'll be your moderator. Before we get started, I'd like to go over again some few items so you know how to participate in today's event. You've joined this event using your computers and speakers, so please make sure that they're turned on and optimal for audio. Also, at the end of the entire track, we'll have a Q&A session. So you'll have the opportunity to submit questions to the team over the course of this track by typing your questions in the question panel of the control panel. And you can send your questions anytime. We'll collect them and we'll address them during the end of the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. If we haven't got to your question, we'll be sure to reach back out and get you an answer around that. Our agenda today in the food and beverage track consists of some very interesting and enlightening topics. The first speaker will be Patrick Merlat from Dassault Systèmes, Home and Lifestyle, Consumer Packaged Goods, and Retail Solutions Vice President. Patrick is going to provide insight into some of the trends in manufacturing and supply chain in food and beverage industry, as well as give you an overview of our vision for excellence in manufacturing. That is going to be followed up by Geoff, who is our DELMIA Senior Solution Consultant, and he's going to give you an overview of the DELMIA solution specifically focused on food and beverage. Afterwards, you'll hear from me, and I'll be presenting what's called the virtual kitchen. This innovative solution by one of our customers, SATS, is sure to provide some insight as to possibly where you can go into your digital transformation. And lastly, we have a customer case study focused on excellence in supply chain from Amy's Kitchen, and you'll hear from Batchem, who is their planning director at Amy's Kitchen. We'll have a short Q&A at the end of the track. So let's get started. Okay, as I mentioned, our first speaker is Patrick Merlat from Dassault Systèmes, Home and Lifestyle, Consumer Packaged Goods, and Retail Solutions Vice President. He's going to be talking about vision and trends in food and beverage. Floor is yours, Patrick.
It is a pleasure for me to introduce the food and beverage discussion track to the online DELMIA Operation World Tour 2020. Speaking about food and beverage, as part of consumers industries at Dassault Systèmes, we must ensure we start by listening to the consumers. Let's watch a small video.
For a long time, launching a quality product at a fair price was enough to win in the marketplace. Huge brands have been built by delivering a strong consumer perceived value. But consumers today are different. It's not just that tastes and preferences have evolved. Now there's a massive fragmentation of beliefs and ideals.
I care about brands that care about the environment.
I only buy food that's gluten-free.
I love beauty products, and I really respect the opinions of this one blogger I read.
The product's packaging has to be recyclable.
When I shop,
I want to be entertained,
not bored.
And compounding all of this, new consumers are a moving target. Their preferences can change at the speed of social media. As consumers continue to evolve, the traditional innovation model is no longer sufficient. Product life cycles are getting shorter because of changing consumer dynamics, and companies that cannot accelerate their development and scale up cycles will be left out watching competitors who can deliver. Dassault Systèmes 3D Experience Innovation Platform is a game changer, delivering powerful brand experiences with the speed and agility that new consumers expect. No more repeating experiments or searching for product data when it's all stored digitally in one place. Silos between departments are broken down for seamless collaboration. Virtual simulation accurately predicts how the product will perform from manufacturing to consumer use. Regulatory compliance is managed centrally to deliver high-quality, sustainable products more efficiently. Merchandising strategies can be visualized from the eyes of the shopper. By accelerating development times, companies can get to market quickly and scale up faster with consumer-centric ideas that will win in the marketplace. The traditional innovation model is no longer sufficient for today's consumers, but an integrated business platform can deliver powerful brand experiences that will capture minds and hearts.
What are the new consumers in 2020? All of us, as consumers ourselves, are observers that the consumer behaviors have been increasingly changing in the last years and in the recent months. Some of the trends we have been observing in the last years are confirming, some are accelerating, some are slowing down, and some are appearing from the last months. The consumer is at the center, and this has significant implications in the manufacturing area. At least 3 major observations are driving food and beverage companies when improving their capacity to satisfy the consumer. Number 1, sustainability is at the top of the consumer expectation, and this is accelerating. Consumers buy products because they make sense to their way of living. They contribute to their health, their wellness, the planet, and the society. It is not about food. It is about my nutrition, my health, my consumption attitude for the future of humanity. Number 2, home has become a priority environment for people, revealed by the current crisis, but also boosted by new technologies, connected devices, and personalized experiences. This is now the era of the multi-purpose home. Number 3, e-commerce. Frictionless commerce is now a reality, accelerated in the last months, providing to consumers multi-option retail with seamless delivery. The new consumer wants to buy directly from brands, local producers, and other consumers, first generating requirements for new supply chain closer to consumers, more agile, and highly configurable. Dassault Systèmes purpose resonates to those observations, providing business and people with 3D experience universes to imagine sustainable innovations capable of harmonizing product, nature, and life. Let us double-click on some of the major trends that are accelerating in food and beverage and their implication for manufacturing strategies within the industry. The imperative of connection between food and health and wellness is triggering a high requirement of innovation and personalization, bringing new players in the value chain. The consumer at home is a more connected consumer, demanding products that are less transformed, more seasonal, thus increasing the need for agility at manufacturers. Sustainability triggers major transformation in the value chain that is becoming global and local and makes transparency as the new rule. Let us zoom in the convergence between food and beverage and health and wellness. Convergence between food and health has extensively transformed the food industry. The new consumers value self-care, home-produced versus prepared food, right ingredients and quantities, less animal protein. More than 25% of consumers seek health benefit from food, such as weight loss, energy, digestive health, and cardiovascular health. The requirement of consumers for health benefit in food and beverage has issued the birth of many new companies delivering innovative ingredients to the markets. All brand manufacturers need to take into account those new companies in the value they deliver to their consumers and their implication in the manufacturing and the supply chain. Innovation and manufacturing for non-animal protein has become a race. Meat, dairy, sugar alternative are driving ingredients innovation. All these new ingredients are also accelerating the imperative for innovation within the production system, such as the emergence of bioreactors. When it comes to the value chain, companies must optimize their operation, also taking into account the nutritional value of their final product, such as the protein value. The optimization puzzles are therefore going to a next level of complexity that our customers need to manage. We can absolutely help them with our DELMIA solutions and technologies. Double-clicking on the new consumer behaviors at home and connected. Major food and beverage companies, here Unilever and Kraft Heinz on the left, are observing transformational requirements at consumers for less transformed food and connection between food and cooking. In the latest Unilever annual report, Alan Geoff, Unilever's CEO, comments about how Unilever served their consumers in the last months with less prepared food and more preparation kits and ingredients for their meals at home. Kraft Heinz leaders recently commented at their Investors' Day about how consumers value help in having the right product and the right ingredients to prepare and cook fast and fresh meals. Those observations imply major reinventions of the supply chains, new actors, new connection to consumers. Those trends are absolutely becoming the new normal. They imply a need for a next level of optimization and agility in the way food and beverage companies must operate. Helping out customers to reconfigure their supply chain to demand variability is an absolute sweet spot of our DELMIA strategy and solution. Finally, yet importantly, sustainability has become the non-negotiable priority of food and beverage companies with an hypercare of resources in the circular economy. The consumer is now the new regulator to enforce transparency imperative in value chain. Consumers drive all food and beverage companies to prove and improve their sustainability initiatives. The life of the product at the end of the plant is not anymore the end. It is only a stage in the loop. To help food and beverage companies, we enable our customers with a comprehensive portfolio of solutions. To deliver those solutions, our drivers are our observations of the business goals of our customers, serving the new consumer, the sustainability mandate, the margin pressure, the race for innovation, the supply chain volatility, and the production complexity. Our strategic solutions for the food and beverage industry tie together business and people being the consumers, with the 3D Experience platform to imagine, create, and produce innovative products. DELMIA is a major pillar of those solutions, covering all the stages of production and supply, from planning optimization down to manufacturing operation and to logistics to the last mile, leveraging the data and optimization technologies at each stage to achieve the best business process realization. The latest members of the Dassault Systèmes family close the loop in the use, the value, and the advocacy of product at consumers, fueling back insightful data to the business value creation loop. Home by Me kitchen experience, Medidata for clinical trials, Proxem for consumer sentiment analysis, and partnership with the Landmark Foundation. All of these are targeting more value in the food and beverage industry for our customers, for them to deliver more value to their consumers. In that perspective, we fundamentally do pay a lot of attention to help our customers with the right solutions to face the tremendous implication of all these changes to the supply chain that is becoming more and more complex, fragile, and volatile. Evolving constraints at plant with cost variability and requirement for multi-site capabilities. Evolving constraints at suppliers with emergence of new type of suppliers and increasing seasonality in production. Evolving constraints at consumers with more and more real-time demands and requirement to answer to it. Evolving constraints at products with increasing variabilities in recipes, raw materials, and ingredients. Those increasing fields of constraints at factories, products, suppliers, and consumers require a precision platform to simulate and optimize your industrial system without any limit in the imagination of your scenarios. Dassault Systèmes and DELMIA answer to that is what we call the virtual twin experience of the supply chain, to help you continuously increasing the service level to your consumers while continuing to contain your costs in an agile and capacity to reconfigure easily manner. Reducing sourcing costs, reducing production costs, transportation, protecting service level, protecting investment for innovation, and be very agile in reconfiguring the end-to-end supply chain and production system is the key customer value we want to target with DELMIA solutions at our customers. Let's have a short video about what means agility.
Consumers want more sustainable, high-quality products and will reward manufacturers who can deliver them while managing the unexpected. Our production agility solution makes it possible to leverage powerful optimization engines to reduce planning time, increase asset utilization, and improve cycle times. With production agility, you achieve best-in-class planning and scheduling that improves delivery speed to drive profitability, fulfill consumer demand, and win market share. Experience new benefits when you can slash overall planning time up to 60%, easily adapt to demand variability while reducing inventory, continuously optimize production planning and capacity at every plant, improve customer service levels, and remove bottlenecks and waste to improve sustainability. It's time to shorten manufacturing cycle times and manage increasingly complex demand with an agile solution that's good for consumers, your business, and our planet. Learn more about production agility.
It's a great illustration of what we can do with DELMIA solution, and more to say in the coming session, really centered on the food and beverage. Couple of takeaways before I turn the scene to my peers. All these major evolution at customers are major implication to the manufacturing fields. Health and wellness convergence, the new consumer, the sustainability imperative. Dassault Systèmes and DELMIA are absolutely committed to this food and beverage industry to help our customers to continue to transform their industrial systems to become more sustainable and more agile, to deliver more value to all of us as we are all consumers. Thank you very much for your attention and have a great conference.
Well, that was a great session that Patrick had around vision and trends. And I'd like to introduce to you Geoff Locket, who is now going to talk about DELMIA for food and beverage. Going to talk about the DELMIA solutions around food and beverage with a deep focus into what we do for supply chain optimization. So with that, I'll turn it over to Geoff. Geoff?
Hello, and welcome to the DELMIA solution session for food and beverage. I'm Geoff Locket, and I'm looking forward to taking you through some details of the DELMIA solutions within the food and beverage space. So in this session, we'll go through three areas: the overall DELMIA solution vision, supply chain planning and optimization in focus, and an example of how integrated business planning is actually used within our customers. So starting out, we live in a world of disruption. Tesla, Uber, and Airbnb are disrupting their relevant marketplaces, but also we've got disruptors within the food and beverage space. Impossible Foods replacing meat in burgers with plant alternatives throughout the Burger King supply chain. Marley Spoon with their restaurant quality meals delivered direct to your door, so why go out to eat when you can have it at home? And then of course Memphis Meats. It's real meat, but it was never part of an animal. And we've also got a new type of consumer. They're more demanding in terms of the location that their food comes from. Obviously they're focused on quality, but also the sustainability of the supply chain that gets it to them. But these aren't the only disruptions. We've also got a disruptive business environment, agile competitors, frequent regulatory changes as different parts of the world change their trading agreements, mergers and acquisitions, a constant source of disruption with over 300 different mergers and acquisitions in the food and beverage industry in North America last year alone. Global disruptions, I'm sure we've experienced a major part of that this year, and that's likely to continue into the subsequent years. Speed to market, making sure that we're the first with our innovations and can win market share in that way. And of course, performance expectations, both of the market and also of ourselves, continually increase. But then there's also technology disruptions. So how can I make the most of big data and optimization? How can I actually use this information that I have available to me to make better decisions and to do a better job within my supply chain? Simulation, machine learning and AI, the Internet of Things enabling capabilities, and fundamentally digital manufacturing. How can we make sure that we've designed the right product with the right production line in order to get it to market effectively, way ahead of actually doing anything in the physical world? How can we use these technologies to leverage that capability and make the best decisions ahead of time in the most efficient way? So fundamentally, at Dassault Systems and within DELMIA, we believe that that virtual twin extends and improves the real world. So by creating a copy, if you will, of your physical infrastructure, of your production lines, of your supply chain, of your warehouses, of the people who staff your lines, of the different rules that constrain them, we can use that to then analyze multitudes of different scenarios, identify ahead of time which is best, and make sure that we pursue that strategy with vigor and ultimately deliver the maximum benefit. So how can I use that? Well, one question might be, how do I make the best plans? Well, the first thing is I need to have an accurate representation of that world. I need to then be able to optimize it, so determine what's the best decision. If there are thousands of options to choose from, how do I pick which one's best? Well, optimization can help us with that. We can prove that that is the best strategy based upon the KPIs that we drive. Synchronization across our supply chain, top to bottom, and also across multiple planning horizons. The decisions that I make long term should influence my operational planning, which should influence my tactical planning, which should influence my execution, and the other way around. As our supply chains get larger, more and more people are involved. So collaboration effectively across different departments and different actors in the process is essential to effective planning tools. We need to simplify processes and standardize and make it possible and easy for people to see where they are and what they need to do next. And we come back to that idea of agility and speed of execution. How can I make sure that I make the right decisions quickly, and where the right decisions are also the obvious decisions? To that landscape, we talk about 4 different areas that DELMIA focus on. The collaboration between the virtual twin, the real world, elements that go together within your supply chain and also within your product design. The robotic elements, the ergonomics, the fabrication process. So once we've modeled the world and created our virtual twin, how can we then create the best plan and optimize that? So sales and operations planning, master planning and logistics planning, workforce planning, what will the people need to do? And also analysis and predictive analytics. AI components to work out from patterns of the past, what are the likely opportunities in the future. And that having created and optimized, we actually need to execute to perform that plan. So lean manufacturing, dealing with our plant maintenance, our warehouse maintenance, asset tracking, delivery management, all of those detailed execution details. So all of these different elements are available, provided by the DELMIA solution stack. So for the rest of this discussion, we're going to talk a little bit more detail about the planning optimization space. So when we think about planning, we think about a number of different horizons. Our strategic and tactical planning, many years ahead and many months ahead. What is it that we're doing now to make sure we have the chance of success in the future? Our tactic planning, what orders are we going to plan? Where are we going to make that? How will we move it around the world? What are the constraints? Operational planning within the plants. What do we need to do today, tomorrow, and the next day in order to make sure that we satisfy our customer orders on time and in full? And ultimately down to execution. Physically, what's happening today, in the next few hours, who's associated with it, who's assigned to it, what do we need to do to make sure that the delivery gets out of the door on time to get on the boat or on the truck to get out to our customer. And it's essential that all of these different planning layers are synchronized together and also work cohesively together. So maybe a plan that I make, a strategic decision that I make, drives my operational planning and ultimately down to my execution planning. But the opposite can be true. If I'm going to have to reduce capacity on a line for a period of time, that could impact my operational planning, and who knows, maybe even my strategic planning. If that line is going to operate at a lower rate for an extended period of time, maybe I need to bring forward my strategic objectives to replace it to an earlier point in time than I originally thought. As well as the planning horizons, there's always a question of, well, how do I know a plan is good? What is the best plan? Well, the best plan is the one that drives my business KPIs in the direction that I want them. So maybe we're very focused on sustainability. So waste and empty miles and efficiency are very high on our objective list. But of course, we're also in business. So revenue and our costs are important. But how can we create the best blend of these different KPIs and therefore create the best plan? And that's fundamentally how the system operates, that we will drive the planning results through the KPIs that are actually specified. System support to create the best plan. Now, depending upon what we're trying to achieve, a simple system may be the right one. If I've got a small sequence that I need to plan for a particular line and it's not so complex, well then maybe I want to quickly get in with a manual plan, drag the elements about, and I'll get the result I want. In other cases, if I've got thousands of products or tens of thousands of products, maybe I want the system to make an initial suggestion for me and then highlight me of the problem areas so I can focus on those. Or ultimately, maybe I've got multiple constraints to consider or a lot of different patterns that I need to evaluate and determine which is the right one to select. And here, optimization or AI can be the best fit. And our solutions offer all of these different methods, and really it's fundamentally about selecting the right method to deliver the planning that you need in the easiest way. So let's talk a little bit about how these solutions are actually used out there in the customer base. So starting with those longer term planning horizons, so strategic planning and tactical planning, looking at several years. So here often we're talking about demand planning and supply planning. So demand planning, dealing with our sales and operations planning workflow, creating an unconstrained forecast, dealing with event and opportunity plannings and promotional planning, especially in food and beverage, and then creating our upside and downside scenarios. That's what's most likely to happen, but what if we're able to be more successful and win more opportunities? Or indeed, what if some of those promotions that we were planning don't quite come off? What would be our downside scenario, and how can we balance between the two? And solutions in this area can ultimately deliver forecast accuracy improvements of between 18 and 25%. Moving on to supply planning. So I've got my demand plan, but how can I actually be sure that we can actually supply against it? So here we're bringing in, of course, shelf life constrained supply plans, inventory optimization and recipe optimization. What's the right way to blend the products together? How can I choose the right ingredients to create the best recipe at this point in time? Financial scenario creation and comparison. What are the costs of making it versus the value that it generates? And also, what are the costs in terms of the environment? So maybe CO2 impact, or the number of miles that we're covering, or energy usage. And safety stock reductions between 11 and 45% are not uncommon. Moving into the operational planning, here we're focusing on company planner, so MRP, MPS calculations, so multi-capacity constraint planning. So have I got the machine and the person and the right tool available at the point in time that I need it in order to complete that task? Optimize production planning and material assignment, using the right materials from the right batches with all of the associated rules so that we can produce the products that our customers want. And available and capable to promise. When a new order comes in, can we confirm it and can we be confident of that delivery date? An increased sales revenue between 10 and 15% is perfectly achievable. In this area, we also talk about workforce planning. So making sure that we have the right people on shift at the right time. So skills-based resource assignment. As the ebb and flow of the day goes, I maybe need more people of one particular skill at one part of the day, and then later in the day, a different type of skill. How can we actually match that up against our shift pattern creation and have the right people arriving to site at the most appropriate time in order to create the best plan? Mobile work management and planning recruitment and training needs, so people can swap shifts automatically on the system. So when we come in at the start of the day, we don't realize that 3 people haven't shown up. They've already managed that ahead of time and are available to work. And into the execution space. So real time, detailed scheduling, what's happening on the shop floor in the next few hours. Optimize shop floor scheduling and sequencing, doing the orders in the most efficient sequence to avoid changeover times and clean down times. Batch optimization for our batch processes for maybe coating and recipes. Work in progress and then available life inventory reduction. So this drives our overall inventory reduction again between 18 and 46% are not unusual. And then logistics planning, transportation, that final mile. How do we get it from our depots out to our end customers in the most efficient way? What should the load planning look like? What route optimization can we do to make sure we make the most efficient journeys? Cross-dock scheduling, and ultimately real-time planning for changes, maybe traffic, maybe deliveries were rejected or turned down, maybe there are other disruptions, vessel schedules and that kind of thing to respect. And this allows us potentially to increase our on-time delivery between 10 and 50%. So thank you for that time to talk to you about this topic.
This is Thomas Muth again. I'm with Dassault Systems DELMIA, your CPG Strategy and Marketing Director. In this segment, we're going to talk about innovation in food and beverage. And I'm going to give you an example of one of our customers on the virtual kitchen. This is a great innovative topic, an example of how to use the virtual experience twin to help optimize operations and improve performance. And this presentation was given to us courtesy of Albert Pozzo, who is the Chief Digital Officer at SATS. So let's begin. SATS, we're going to talk about is SATS Food. You may not be familiar with them, but they're a food caterer in Southeast Asia, working with airlines, cruise ships, and the likes. And we're going to talk about the SATS Virtual In-Flight Kitchen, specifically data-driven sustainability. And SATS, if you're not familiar with them, which in other parts of the world you may not, unless you travel quite a bit, SATS is a global operation. They feed Asia by operating central kitchens to provide in-flight and institutional catering. They connect with Asia and their partners with air freight, apron, passenger, and other security services. And they're used in over 60 airports. They deliver over 171,000 meals a day with 106 million passengers, 62 cities, and also work collectively with over 600,000 flights, and also manage over 4 million tons of cargo. So quite a large operation, quite complex as well. So back in 2017, SAT started a journey to digitize and transform its business model. And they had a vision to transform the way in which their kitchens were run. Now, as some of you might be aware, the kitchen environment is one that would be obviously labor intensive and rely heavily on manual processes. Now, while it's been a successful business model for them in the past, SAT's also realized the importance of ensuring that they captured and retained the know-how of what was said in French of the company, or what was done within operations. On top of that, they wanted to be able to digitize their processes for more complex data analysis, and now allow them to deliver greater insights into their operations. So that's when they came to Dassault to leverage the virtual twin experience. And in this case, not only did they want to capture know-how and processes, they wanted to also validate new processes for planning and look at these as digital assets to help drive corporate sustainability and improve IP and capture IP. They wanted to harness the power of what that could provide in what they called their SAT's digital twin kitchen operation. Now, in this project, SAT's had three key challenges they faced. One was around data, the other one was around change, and the last was around ROI. Regarding data, really the challenge that they had was around data integrity, specifically ensuring that they had data consistency and they accounted for any missing data. And in this case, for data consistency, they conducted an exercise basically to clean up and minimize the number of versions, which enabled them to have a consistent method of production and ensure that they had the highest standard of all their foods. And regarding missing data, there was a lot of missing information that they had, like, for example, cooking durations or ingredient lists or equipment specs that needed to be entered in so that the essential information was there to refine and optimize the production process. So they did a number of different data collection exercises to capture that information, and eventually had pulled that together. The other challenge shown here is change, and really change really was around two areas. One was people, and the other was processes. And so from a people standpoint, they had to work to get the support from people within the organization to embrace the technology as they went forward with the virtual twin experience to make sure that it would be successful. And people didn't truly understand the technology at first in what it was being used for. For example, the technical services teams, typically in a lot of cases relied on Excel to estimate adding new machinery to the plants and simulating that through Excel. And we had to show them, they had to show them what multiple simulations could do and how rapidly it could be done in the virtual world. Ultimately, they were convinced that the platform, in this case with DELMIA, was much more convenient than what they've been doing before in Excel, and were easily convinced. And when they looked at it overall, they accounted that it saved them around 30% of their time when compared to the same activity that they were doing simulating variants and options in Excel. And the other area, again, around change management is around processes. So processes, previously the production planning was done based on the experiences of the chefs. And so one of the challenges here is we had to bring that experience in and digitize that experience and capture it so that within the SAT's operations, we could then finally automate as other industries have automated. And one of the challenges was for SATs, it has a very high mix and high volume of SKUs. So they had to go through a large process of streamlining their SKUs first before they could put the full supply chain capabilities together as well in this solution. And so it was a decision that was made that they could take this approach to make it more sustainable with SATs overall. And then the third challenge here was really around ROI. And so ROI was not felt immediately in the project as both the people and processes adapted to the new business model. However, there were very tangible results that quickly became evident, like capturing the goodwill and processes across the organization that wasn't previously there in the operations. But it also started to provide a long-term benefit in terms of showing up as improved productivity and starting to give a more competitive advantage of agility in the industry. And so they're still measuring the ROI and the feedback on that today, but they anticipate significant improvements in their overall productivity. And they've also been able to see the ability to be more competitive on new bids as they're simulating different scenarios for achieving and catering operations, and those operations both for airlines or cruise lines, etc.
SATS's new and expanded kitchen facility is equipped with highly automated kitchen operations, the first of its kind in Asia. With our large batch production capability, we are in a position to create better nutrition for more people. SATS adopts a technology-driven, people-led approach in everything we do and have invested in the digital twin technology. This enables SATS to perform virtual prototyping for real-time optimization and digital asset management. This new kitchen facility is now augmented with the digital twin. Digital twin helps to simulate different production scenarios for each recipe in order to optimize the use of resources in our kitchens. Culinary insights and experience of our chefs can now be captured digitally and reproduced to enhance consistency in our production. By harnessing digital twin, we can perform simulations of possible production scenarios to detect bottlenecks or validate new processes. In this way, we optimize resources and can better plan the use of our equipment and manpower according to the demand and needs of our customers. This enhances our productivity and reduces wastage. SATS believes in creating opportunities for our people to develop and grow. With digital twin, our people can now acquire new skills and be trained in operating sophisticated digital platforms. With a smarter workforce supported by intelligence-based decision-making tools, SATS is on our way to becoming a smart kitchen. SATS is now better prepared to be transformed into a smart kitchen of the future. Sensors implemented in the future will provide access to real-time data, which allows quicker response to incidents and enables preventative maintenance. Introduction of new equipment can be simulated on a virtual environment to better understand the impact on operations, where further enhancements can be made before implementation. The digital twin technology can also be applied across different operations at SATS, enhancing our ability to manage growth sustainably.
So great. I hope you enjoyed that. I think that's a very good overview of what SATS has done using DELMIA and specifically the virtual twin experience and optimizing their operations and enabling agility to both support improving performance, but also just in general, and also improving customer experience. So with that, also just to follow on to that, as you can see, with SATS, they really use the simulation to plan, optimize, monitor, but also they monitored using DELMIA to adjust across their overall operations. And they did that specifically around execution and monitoring of their systems. So today, with the use of the DELMIA digital manufacturing solution and platform, they're able to capture key information such as recipes, cooking processes, equipment assets, and kitchen layouts to do the planning and simulations. And this information would then be optimized through the use of the production tool such as DELMIA Orchips. So they did the took the simulation resource planning and then use that information to do a virtual process optimization. So not only were they optimizing the process in the virtual kitchen for different tack times, for ensuring ergonomics were compliant, but also they took that information to then optimize their overall schedules up front, even before executing and going into deployment. And with that, then they eventually then drove that back over into the execution systems. And with the use of IoT and the MES, the entire solution then could be improved upon. So now we have a continuous flow of information back to the ERP, where then it could be further used for planning optimization. And so their goal really is to digitize the entire supply chain to help them increase their capabilities in process planning, in optimization, and execution. And ultimately, they aim to build a kitchen control tower, which is capable of monitoring and performing data analytics on all that information collected. And so the values that they achieved were several from the use of this digital twin technology, the digital twin experience. First, they avoided significant costs that typically they had to incur. There was virtual deployment to assess new value of the investment, so they could identify if that investment would pay back. They would also take a look at this and I'd be able to identify new revenue and new capabilities that could be introduced to secure new contracts. In one case, they use this with a SAF contract to identify their ability to meet the requirements for that contract and ultimately bid and win the job. Another area for improvement and value was really it helped them conceptualize their strategy. They were able to look at new business models in the virtual sense and identify the feasibility of those business models against the different constraints, and also to ensure that it actually could be performed and modeled and built as they envisioned. And so all of this really helped them bring together a sustainable business model as a result of using the digital twin technology. And as such, it also helped drive their overall sustainability goals as well. And they had three primary sustainability pillars that they focus on. One is around treasuring resources, which is, of course, reducing emissions or using resources efficiently. Another is connecting people. And the third is about nourishing communities, tackling wastage, making sure supply chain is sustainable. All of these were enhanced and met what the goals of SAT sustainability pillar mantra. And by doing so, what they did is they used the DELMIA solution to help optimize resources, so optimizing the use of their manpower and equipment. They used it also to drive sustainable jobs so that they were able to ensure the job redesign and upgrades were sustainable in the process. And they also used the solution to become more efficient and help avoid wastage throughout the production planning process. So with that, that's the end of this segment on innovation with the virtual kitchen and using SATs as a great example of what you can do with DELMIA with the virtual twin experience. Thank you very much, and we'll go on to the next segment. So thank you everyone for your keen attention thus far. And in one of the last segments of our food and beverage track, we're going to hear from Amy's Kitchen. This is a great customer case study, and I think you'll enjoy it quite well. It's really going to highlight a true end-to-end example of supply chain excellence. And this is presented by Nigel Batchem, who is Amy's Kitchen Senior Planning Director. So with that, I'll turn it over to Nigel.
Hi, I'm here to talk to you about Amy's Kitchen and our journey with Quintig. Our journey with Quintig started back in 2013, and we have 4 products we have implemented so far. So first, let's just give a bit of a background to Amy's Kitchen. So we are a CPG company producing frozen and canned natural foods, retail packages. They are all vegetarian and largely organic as well. So the business was started in 1987 by Rachel and Andy Berliner. When Amy was born, their daughter, they found it difficult to find convenient natural products in their supermarkets. So they decided to start a business based on that. So 33 years later, and we now have over 300 different meal options available. And really the mission of Andy and Rachel is to make the most delicious food with high quality ingredients and to make that available for everyone. So to be able to do that, we have a fairly complex manufacturing environment. We are making all parts of the product from raw vegetables. So for example, for tofu, we buy soybeans and make our own tofu. We are the second largest producer of tofu in the United States, all of that going into our meals. We purchase flour and make our own pasta, and we also make our own tortillas from both wheat tortillas for burritos and corn tortillas for enchiladas. And we've grown to be producing around about 1 million meals per day across 3 different production facilities. So another passion of the owners is that they want to be able to cook for everyone. So this covers people with intolerances to different allergens. Example there is the mac and cheese option. We have in this picture 6 different mac and cheeses to suit all of the different requirements of the consumers. This further adds lots of complexity around scheduling around the allergens, as well as a number of these products are very small items that there's not a big market for them. But the mission for Andy and Rachel is to be able to provide these meals for everyone, even if for other businesses it wouldn't make sense to do so. So here is a look at some of our products. We've got some soups there on the left-hand side, burritos and wraps in the middle, and then some of our frozen entrees on the right-hand side. So all of that adds up to a lot of complexity to be able to make these products taste as good as they would if you cook them yourself in your kitchen. So here's an example of our breakfast scramble and all of the different steps that go into producing it. There are 61 different processes to schedule, and that is taking all of from raw vegetables, prepping those vegetables, cooking them, and then getting them all to the assembly line to be able to pack them off. There are 78 different ingredient inputs. So an input being a time that an ingredient is added into a process. And we have 37 inventoried whips to be able to produce that product. Because it's food, it's all very short shelf life. It has to move through the factory very quickly. And so very critical timing requirements to get all of these products scheduled as needed. So moving on to the Quintig landscape at Amy's. So in the diagram there, on the x-axis, we have time frame from years ahead of time on the left through to days on the right. And on the y-axis, we have the 4 different resources we are trying to plan. So we're trying to plan for raw materials, planning for plant and equipment resources, planning for labor, and then transportation. So overlaid with that is the 4 different products that we are running at the moment from Quintig. And so the first one we implemented, I've called it Workforce there, but it's not actually Workforce Planner. It is a very small custom-built product that is outside of any of the products. I should just note that for each of these implementations, we used, so 4 implementations, we used 4 different techniques for implementing those products. So 4 different project methodologies. So this first one for the workforce, because it was such a tiny project, we used a methodology of a 2-week demo challenge where the system was effectively built within a couple of weeks on the base product. It has the functionality of assigning employees to positions on the production line based on their skills, something that we used to do in a spreadsheet. The next product that we went live with was in early 2016, which was our production scheduler. And it was really the core of all of our planning systems, the center of everything. It is a very complex system. So that product, we started out using the Quintig methodology for implementation, QPLC, I think it was called, but we actually diverted out of that, and the project ended up taking much longer than it was supposed to. Really just because we didn't even understand ourselves how complex it was going to be to put the things that we did into a system. In hindsight, as we look back, we would say that we didn't really scope the project very well. And we got so excited about what we could do with Quintig when we started the project that we spent all of our time scoping out things we wished we could do, and we forgot to focus on the core. And then when we got into implementation, we found that the core was just a whole lot more complex than we had originally thought. So that made the project drag out longer than was expected, but it was still very, very successful, and really got the whole business working together on the planning front, from scheduling through raw materials planning. Part of the complexity of that project, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail, is we're actually doing our master scheduling in the scheduling tool. That the master scheduling of deciding what we're going to produce on a production line on a day is so complicated that we can't really do it in a rough cut capacity sort of method. So we have to use the more detailed scheduling tool for that. Because of that, we also needed to put into there the raw materials planning. So we're not using company planner to do that master scheduling. So materials planning doesn't fit within scheduler, so that whole part of the system was custom built for our implementation. Next project we did was the macro planner, which is up the top left. So macro planner is covering all of our long-term planning. For that methodology, we did a very basic implementation, no customization, really because we didn't know what we wanted to do with it. So we just tried to implement to cover off a couple of key objectives, mainly around labor planning and raw materials planning, with the minimal customization, with the aim of going back at some point to build it out. And then the last system we went live with was Distribution Planner. Now, Distribution Planner is not the logistics planner. Distribution Planner is a sub-product of Macro Planner. And so its functionality is to figure out how to fill up the trucks that are moving from the plant to the warehouse, 3PL warehouses for customers to be able to ship to customer. And we'll talk a little bit more about that one soon. So what I want to focus in on today is more around the labor puzzle we are trying to solve. So from the product range, just to be able to get the level of quality we need, it is a very manual operation and uses a lot of labor. So we have a very low level of automation. We aim to automate where we can, where it does not affect product quality, but we will pass up on automation options if it does affect the product quality. So we have a very low level of automation. Because of that high labor requirement and the diversity of products, all the products are very different. Every product needs a different number of people to produce it each day. So we can have a massive amount of variability from one day to the next on a product line. So on the supply of labor side of it, we have some constraints that don't work very well with our demand for labor, and that we have a fixed pool of labor. We have to provide full-time employment for every person. So every day we need to schedule production to try and use every single person that we have available. And that comes from the passion of the owner to be able to look after the employees as a top priority. On the other side of it, we also have a very low level of certainty of how many people we have to be able to schedule. So we have been in a situation of a severe labor shortage that started in 2016 and has progressively got worse and worse through 2019. It's starting to get a little bit better now. But what that means is we never have enough people, and there's a lot of turnover. And so we don't have a lot of certainty of how many people we have to be able to schedule the production against. So that's some background to the challenges we have with labor scheduling. For our master scheduling, our key objective here is to be the most cost effective, which is to maximize our cases per labor hour produced. So what the scheduling system needs to do, if we have to use all of our people and all of our products use a different number of people, it has to choose combinations of products to schedule on a day that tries to use as many people as possible. We have a measure which we call stranded labor, which is that leftover number of people that don't contribute to the schedule. And we try to minimize that level of leftover employees. But some of our plants have a small number of production lines. And what that means is there's fewer combinations to be able to choose from. And so for that, we have different ways of running a product to give us more combinations. So our production line may have 2 different conveyor belts running into a spiral freezer. For assembling the product, we can staff either 1 side, 2 sides, 3 sides, or 4 sides of the conveyor, which all uses a different number of people. But of course, when we get into that situation, each of those different configurations has a different efficiency. That there are some fixed positions, and so as you scale back the production on that production line, the cost starts to increase. So we're trying to balance that, leaving excess employees not scheduled versus the efficiency loss of using them less efficiently. So that is a fairly complex puzzle for the scheduler system to solve. All that has to be done while honoring all of the other objectives around making the right products. We can't just keep fitting in a product that has the right number of people, but we don't really need it for sales. And on top of that, we have all of our allergen concerns that we talked about with the product ranges that we did. So that gives us a major challenge there, is that we don't really have any good understanding of what our rate of production is and whether we're producing enough until we produce the final schedule, which for us is really starting to firm up with a 3-week window. And so our process is to try and figure out longer term with Macro Planner, which I'll cover off shortly, how many people we should have, and we try and recruit to that. And then it's the scheduler's turn to try and turn whatever we end up with in the way of labor availability into as many cases as we can of production. So, as I said, a very successful project for us. We still have more work to do on it, but we had some substantial benefits in that we were able to service customers with 25% less inventory. And most of that came through just the integration of all the parts of the planning, the raw materials with the scheduling, integrating all that together, and it was very much more responsive to changes in either the production side or the sales side. So a successful project for us there. So then on the Macro Planner side of it, Macro Planner is looking further out and trying to help us to decide how many people we need to have in the future. So the premise there from the previous slide is just the overall rate of production is dependent on available labor. And so that is the key puzzle we are trying to solve with Macro Planner, is getting a good labor plan. But what we know is that we have a high degree of uncertainty that we'll actually achieve that plan because of labor shortage. If we didn't have a labor shortage, this would be a lot easier. So, for the inputs to the plan, one input is labor availability. So we are feeding into Macro Planner a profile that has a monthly labor target, and it's an iterative process. The reason we do it that way is, as I said, we did a very minimal customization. We have some constraints around that labor availability. We have to smooth it. We can't just flex up and down. And we also have a fairly high turnover rate. So we have to manually enter all that into Macro Planner and run scenarios with it to see what the best labor profile is. We also feed into it assumptions about utilization, which is our ability to turn that labor into cases. We can also adjust product mix between plants, where we might know that we're going to be short of labor in one plant and start moving products from one plant to another to try and balance that. So the challenges we have out of this is needing to produce at capacity while capacity remains unknown, and that is the capacity of our labor. It gives us indirect control of our inventory. We're not able to just directly say we're going to do this and execute on it. So it gives us less control over our process. And so the way we deal with that is that we are continuously updating the plan as needed to respond to those changes for the things that we don't have very good control over. Also, what this gives us is an atypical S&OP process. So typically with S&OP, you've got your demand, you've got your supply, and your supply will constrain your demand. It's very difficult to constrain your demand when you don't know what your capacity is going to be, the capacity being labor. We also have capacity issues around plant and equipment, and those are very easy to know with certainty that you're going to, you know how many production lines you're going to have 4 months from now. You don't know how many people you're going to have. And the same on the raw material side. We have some uncertainty on the raw materials. So we have very limited ability to give feedback on the demand to constrain it as part of the S&OP process. Some other issues we have with the macro planner. So we've got a fairly old version of it, and as I said, basic installation. We end up with a poor product mix being planned by macro planner. There was something introduced for us in our implementation, which is the inventory mix balancing optimization. It still doesn't give us the ideal result. But what happens with an optimizer, if we're overly constrained on our available labor, it will go and produce a mix which is very favorable on labor. So it'll get us the most cases for the amount of labor we have so that it meets inventory objectives. This is very different to how we would actually do the production. And so this is just an issue we are dealing with the macro planner to try and get a good plan out of it. The other issue is we have a very slow response to change. So while we are regularly updating the plan based on what has changed, generally, if we need to recruit more people, we are looking at a 2 to 3 month lead time to be able to do that. So we have regular updates, but any influence we have over changing the results is quite some time in the future. So in terms of future development, so we want to get into a rolling daily plan and replace some of what the scheduler does and integrate it with the scheduler so that macro planner is sending demands to scheduler. We want to improve the inventory mix balancing, and for labor availability constraints, we want to be able to put into macro planner, that constraint on the amount of labor that can change from month to month to do the smoothing. And that will allow us to get away from an iterative process. So those are things planned for the future for us. So running out of time here, so I'll quickly run through distribution planner. So distribution planner was the first system we implemented using the Quintig methodology, where we didn't change scope. It was a very successful implementation, went on time, and delivered everything we expected. So this product, so the distribution planner, as I said, is a sub-product of macro planner. It is planning what to put on the trucks, what trucks we need to ship all of the product from production to the 3PLs. So the challenge being we have to book the trucks before we've even produced the product because our warehouses at the plants have such low capacity. But there's a lot of change that can happen between that time of booking the truck, which might be 3 days before production, a lot of change that can happen between then and when we actually come time to load the truck. So our previous system was very inflexible, where we would have to decide exactly what items were going to be on that truck 7 days ahead of time. And when it came time, there had been so much change. Generally, the trucks were sent away fairly empty just because it was too hard to be able to revise the plans. So with this product, we were able to increase our truck utilization from around 80% up to 99%. So every truck is leaving the plant very full. So a very good result there for us from that product. So just to recap, so planning with uncertainty, the key uncertainties we've talked about are the labor uncertainty, and for the distribution planning is just product uncertainty, the uncertainty of whether a product is going to be there. So how we deal with that is having a responsive planning system that is regularly updating at appropriate intervals and replanning as needed, so that although with uncertainty, we will start to stray from the desired result, we are continuously bringing ourselves back towards target. For the macro planner, that is monthly updates. For production scheduler, we are doing daily updates. And for DRP, also daily updates, but we are even bringing in real-time inventory changes through the day. So, that is all I have.